Welcome to another video where we are talking about supply chain, but very basic. So that's why it's supply chain 101. Now, if you are a person who doesn't know what's a supply chain, what does it exactly mean when someone says supply chain, you are at the right place. And if you are someone who's been doing it for some years, please do correct me and please do tell me if I go wrong somewhere because I'm also learning at the same point. Now, what does supply chain mean? Of course, it's a chain of processes, right? This process essentially starts from supplier, then it goes to a manufacturer, then it goes to a distributor, then it goes to a retailer, and then you have an end consumer. Now, if you remember from my sort of the consulting 101 video, I explained you what I do as a supply chain consultant to an ice cream problem. So let's try to solve this also using the same example of an ice cream. So let's say you are a supplier. Let's start from manufacturer actually. So let's say you are a manufacturer who manufactures ice cream, right? Now, what goes as a raw material in an ice cream is basically milk. You have the base that makes the cones of flour, sugar, and some preservatives. Yeah, this is not one of those organic, vegan, and the other fancy words that people use to charge you more money. It's a normal ice cream shop, so you have preservatives and sugar as well. Maybe okay, some sugar-free alternatives. Now, what do you think? How does a manufacturer get all of this? Because manufacturer is essentially making an ice cream. Again, that's why it's a manufacturer. Now, this exactly is what a supplier does. So, milk, flour, sugar free, preservatives. All of this can come from a single supplier or a set of suppliers. For example, there could be this supplier who only gives milk. There is another supplier too who takes care of the sugar and sugar free additions for the ice cream process. Then there's a supplier 3 which takes care of the preservatives, and then there is supplier 4 which essentially gives you the flour. So what you can see right now is one manufacturer can have multiple layers of supplier, and it's actually called multi-tier supplier manufacturer relationship. And it doesn't just stop here. For example, this S4, the supplier for who's giving flour to our manufacturer, has its own set of suppliers who provide him wheat or some other corn. I don't know what this thing is made of, but let's say it's corn goes in as one of the raw materials, so it can have its own set of suppliers. So this is more or less on the supplier side. Supplier, if you want to describe, if you are telling people I'm a supplier, I'm talking to suppliers, essentially someone who provides the raw materials to the manufacturer. Now, manufacturer as well, let's say we have this ice cream that we need as an end product. This is where the ice cream is. Now, manufacturer also for this ice cream is not just going to be one, could be, but not, and but could not very well also be the same one, because you need packaging, and this packaging can also be a different manufacturer. This one can source cardboard or plastic or whatever you need from some other set of suppliers. So you see how complicated it gets by the time you reach there. Now, let's say manufacturer has produced a product which is packed, has the ice cream here. Now it will move the consignment from manufacturing facility to a distribution facility, which essentially is a warehouse. Now, this process in between manufacturing to retailer, it involves two core process, and one of the actually both of them are my specialty or something that I want to specialize, want to go deep dive into. It's called logistics. Logistics, self-explanatory. Anything, basically the process that moves goods from here to here, then here to here. It's called logistics, and then between this movement, there's a place where all of these goods are kept. This is called a warehouse, or the process is called warehousing. Then you have the retailers, of course, which who are the people who are selling the ice cream to you, and towards the end it's you who's the person who at the end of the day is going to get their very very cool mother dairy ice cream, or I don't know, Haagen Dazs for example, and you're going to enjoy here. So you are the end customer. Now this is what a typical supply chain looks like, but this is not where it ends now. There are some changes. For example, this distribution, this retailer has split into multiple types. For example, a brick and mortar store, an online store. This distribution, this warehousing is also very different. Since it's an ice cream, it's going to be a cold chain logistics. Otherwise, there are basically what I'm trying to say, there are complications in this entire process, but this is the short and the very 101 level sort of information. There's one more thing that you need to understand, or you must have understood in a way, that there are a couple flows in this entire supply chain. The first one is called goods flow. The second one is called money flow, money or cash flow, and the third one is called information flow. Now this is something that I want to deep dive into going in one of in my next set of videos, but let me very quickly explain what this goods flow means. So if you have already not figured it out, the flow of goods is this way, which means it goes from supplier to the end consumer. But there's another flow of goods, if you don't know, is you always do not end up liking the products, and we call it in supply chain return goods flow, which is triggered by the end consumer and can end up anyway, like at any point in this entire process, but it flows from the end consumer to upwards. And after that, you have the cash flow, which essentially means that some money was paid here, and throughout this process, end to end, something was deducted here, something was deducted here, something was deducted here, something was deducted here, and this is how you reach. And logically, when a good is returned, the money flows from here, because once the dollar reached here, you have returned the value. Once the good reaches here, the money reaches here. So this is called the money or the cash flow. And then the last part is the information flow, and this is, like, of course, this is the most from the money point of view, but this is the flow that drives the entire supply chain. Like, all global supply chain work on the information flow. This is something which we also will start deep diving as we move with this series. But information flow also follows the same flow as the money or the cash, which means, what I mean, sorry, taking a step back, what I mean by an information flow is essentially that uh, the end consumer wanted a product. This is an information for this person, which triggers multiple different processes and ends up to the supplier over here, triggers different processes at suppliers end. So this is called an information flow. Now this essentially also follows, as I mentioned, the same money or the cash flow direction, that it flows from here to here, and then once the return is also done, it also flows from here to here. So I think this is okay. Now if I think about it, it's not pretty looking right now, but this is, I really hope this was the very basic introduction for you, what a supply chain is and how does it function on a very high level. Now going forward, we'll be talking more or less about different processes under each of these, and then also I think simultaneously we'll also cover the information flow. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, if there are topics that you would want me to specifically discuss, not, you don't, it doesn't have to be related to supply chain or consulting. If you are, you know, in any corporate problem, if you want to learn something new, just feel free to shoot them through the DMs or email me. The email is on my Instagram channel. But until then, stay happy, be safe. See you soon.